Hiya, I'm Pimmie. It's been a long time since the last vlog, but I got the question how I use a filler thread in hand sewing with thick fabric to keep the edges, the raw edges of the fabric from fraying when sewing a hem, because if you have really thick fabric, then you don't want to turn under the fabric because it gets so bulky on the hem. I'm working with really thick wool, really nice thick and fluffy woolen fabric, and I'm making cloaks, big cloaks for my kids because they like the Ranger's Apprentice book series, and when they go out shooting with a bow and arrow and practicing, they want to pretend to be a Ranger's Apprentice, and they need a good cloak for that. And what I did was, because this fabric is so thick and heavy, when I make a hem, I only want to fold it over and just cast it over, sew it down, not turn it under, because then you get the 3 times the thickness of the fabric, and it's really too bulky. And if you do that on a garment, then that hem is almost capable of standing up on itself. So I only want to fold it over and secure the edge. But if I would just sew over it, then the raw edges and the cut ends would start fraying. So what I do is that I add a bit of yarn to fill up the difference between the folded over bit and the rest of the fabric. So I want a yarn that is almost a bit thinner than the fabric, and I fill that gap and sew over it, so the sewing thread isn't pulling into the raw edge. The yarn next to it is filling up the gap. I used on the cloaks a dark brown thread, and you can't really see it all that well, I think. So I wanted to show it with a contrasting thread here, which is a bit thinner than the one I used somewhere. The one I used on the real cloak, which I have misplaced now. Oh, here. See, the darker yarn is a bit thicker than the blue one I'm going to use now. Also, it's dreary outside, so there isn't nice light in here to film, so I hope it shows up. Let's see if I can get this pointed on my hands. Here you have the folded over fabric and the yarn filling the gap between the double thickness of the folded over edge and the rest of the fabric, and then it's just a matter of sewing over the edge and just over the thread. And that thread is filling up the difference between the double thickness and the single layer, and prevents the sewing thread from pulling into the raw edge. Let's see, maybe it's better visible like this. So that's the trick to avoid extra bulky hem or any seam, and keeping the raw edge from fraying. So I hope I explained the technique and you can use it, because I find it very useful in hand sewing, and I use it very often. It wears well, and it doesn't start fraying later in wearing. So hope to see you next time. Bye.